Hi, what's up guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name's Sam. If you're new here, thank you so much for stopping by. If you enjoy this type of content, then don't forget to hit the subscribe button and ding the little bell so you don't miss a video whenever I upload. Today we're going to be talking about some of my little divas, my little drama queens. We're talking about prayer plants, Calathea Maranta, basically all diva plants that pray. So we're going to be taking a look at all of the prayer plants that I have in my collection currently, and I'm going to be sharing with you how I care for these girls and what works best for me and them when it comes to caring for them in my home and my environment. So let's go ahead and jump right on in. Let's start off with the Marantas first. The first one I'm going to share with you is my lemon lime Maranta, and this guy was actually a lot longer. He had a much longer trailing piece that I accidentally snapped off when I was treating for spider mites, and it's up in some water, growing roots right now, and also has some crisping leaves, so that's lovely. I water this guy when he dries out. I try to get to it before the leaves curl. Here we have a very thirsty variegated rabbit foot Maranta. You can see he's got a yellow leaf there because I've let him dry out too long. He's a little bit wilted, meh, but he will be just fine. I do try to water my Marantas before they get to this point where their leaves are curling and they're a drooping mess. But sometimes it just happens, you know, sometimes this is just how it goes. I love them both dearly, but they're both very easy. By that, I just mean that they're the most tolerant of underwatering. They're the most tolerant of humidity drops. I wish I would have watered him like a day or so ago so you could really see, because he's so beautiful when his leaves are all perky. I have him in this little plastic pot for my Marantas and Calatheas. I do not keep any of them in terracotta. Like, they're not as demanding when it comes to their watering schedule as like ferns or Phottonias, things like that. But I have noticed that they don't really like to dry out too much. This guy was in bloom until about mid-fall probably, and then he stopped, but he has the most dainty little purple blooms and they are adorable. So this is my little red Maranta, the red veined, and I actually hauled him just recently. I haven't had him very long at all. He was in that little ceramic hanging planter, but he was in a nursery pot crammed down in there. He was drying out way too fast, and I had hung him above my Mars Hydro, which was a bad idea because it puts off a lot of heat, and he got way too dry, way too hot. I'm gonna insert a picture of what I walked into whenever I went to check on him. What I found, I was like, oh my gosh, I killed him. I just got him and I already killed him. So I had another red vein prayer plant for a good while, and I have to say he was the most fussy. Out of all my Marantas, he seemed to be the most fussy. I had several issues with that guy crisping his leaves and just being really dramatic, so I ended up losing that plant. So I picked up this one, and yeah, he is on the rebound right now. He's recovering from that underwater crisis. Upped him to this larger ceramic planter, gave him a really good drink, and he did straighten his leaves back out. I am thankful that his new growth seems to be good, like it doesn't seem to be affected too much. And we do have a couple yellow leaves still here and there, but he looks much better than he did a few days ago, okay? I'm really hoping that this one will be a lot less dramatic than my previous red Maranta, but I guess we'll find out. Let's move on to my one and only Stromanthe, or Stromanthe. Not sure which pronunciation is correct, but this is my trio star. And guys, this plant has been beautiful for the longest time. Like it's looked great, but I recently moved this plant, and the place that I moved it, I should have known better because my daughter got a hold of it, and look what she did to her. If you look at some of the leaves, they look like they've been chomped on, and they haven't. My daughter literally just got a hold of some of the leaves and ripped them, which she normally doesn't do. She normally does not mess with my plants at all. But yeah, there's just several that have hairs and chunks missing out of them. But aside from that, this plant has been such an awesome one. First of all, it's absolutely beautiful. I love the fuchsia pink. It's so like bright and pretty. This is like the one and only plant I've ordered off Amazon, and it was in the middle of winter, last winter, so I've had her now a year. And she looked beautiful whenever I unboxed her, but a couple days later, she crisped up and lost every single leaf. My mind was blown at how quickly she decided to grow back and fill out and just become a full plant again. And because of that, you know, she's definitely earned my respect. And I know a lot of people struggle with the trio stars, but in my experience, that has not been the case. This plant gets pretty bright light. She gets bright indirect light, and she gets watered when dry, pretty much like all of my prayer plants, all on the same watering schedule. So I let them almost dry all the way out, and then I go ahead and give them a good water, but I do try to get to watering them before their leaves start to crisp and curl. I would just say once you notice that the first inch or two of the soil is dry, I would go ahead and give your plant a good water, a good soak through, and you shouldn't have any issues. If you're an underwater, like I tend to be at this point in time in my journey, make sure that you are potting your prayer plants in a ceramic planter. You want to use a nice, airy, well-draining soil mix, which you want to use that type of mix with most of your house plants. Yeah, so make sure that you have a nice, airy mix, but definitely would not recommend using terracotta for any type of Calathea Maranta. Ceramic or plastic pots are the way to go for sure. Now let's move on to my Calathea. This is one of my pride and joys. Okay, this is my Calathea fasciata, or Calathea rotundifolia. I think it goes by both names. She is insanely gorgeous. I mean, she's just everything. Similar to Calathea orbifolia, this one has the really large, round, beautiful foliage. The main difference is the color of the leaf. So this one reminds me of an orbifolia with the color put back into it, or the pigmentation put back into the leaf. Now, this plant has struggled with spider mites a couple times over the last few months, and she did have a period of dormancy for maybe like 2 months where she wasn't actively putting off new leaves. She was just kind of maintaining and trying to make it through this constant spider mite battle that we were having. But I am proud to say that she has started growing again and shooting off those new leaves. She seems to be a pretty fast grower. It's kind of hard for me to tell now, but this is a new leaf here that she's just unfurled. And I believe, I'm not sure, there's another one. There's 2 new leaves that she's just put off. I believe it's this big one here, or this one behind that. But I love it because all of her new leaves coming in are larger. She does have some crispy bits here and there on her older leaves, as you can see from under watering. If I let her dry out and stay dry for too long, she definitely does crisp up her leaves. She's a little bit dramatic in that sense, but otherwise, she's fairly easy so long as I don't let her stay dry and I make sure that I'm cleaning her leaves pretty consistently, getting the dust off of them and making sure that I'm not letting any spider mite outbreaks go unnoticed or untreated. She has the red backsides to her leaves. As long as you're willing to keep up with the watering needs, then yeah, I would definitely recommend this Calathea just because it's absolutely gorgeous. She has 1, 2 new leaves coming in right now. So she just unfurled 2 leaves and she has 2 more coming in right now. I would be devastated if something happened to this plant, guys. This is my baby. I actually don't have that many prayer plants now. I had several, like I had the Calathea ornata, which is a beautiful one, but she is definitely seemed to be a drama queen. Like I could not keep that plant happy. She just lost all of her leaves. Like I think it was the medallion, or the Mayo Koana, however you say that. Both of those I think I actually had. Soon after I got them, they just died. That was that. There's definitely more varieties that seem to be a lot more finicky than others. Basically, the ones that I have left are the troopers. These are the ones that I, in my opinion, would say are more on the easy side, easy care. As long as you keep up with their watering, they're more easy care. They don't really care as much about the super high humidity like a lot of prayer plants do. So yeah, the only ones that are left are the ones that put up with my negligence. But up next we have this gorgeous plant, and this is the Calathea or walk around. I gotta put it on the screen, but the velvet leaf Calathea, and this looks really similar to the zabrina, which we'll see in just a moment. Now I have heard that this particular Calathea is kind of a diva. Guys, I mean, I can only speak from my own experience, and I know it's going to be different for everyone depending on where you live. This one's been a trooper for me. She has been incredible. I mean, she just has been. She's not really growing at the moment. I don't think she's put off a new leaf in a little while anyway. This was her newest leaf, I believe, and she had spider mites. All of my Calathea and prayer plants have had spider mites this winter, so keep that in mind. But she was putting off this leaf during her spider mite treatment, and you can see it has some damage on it. But aside from that, I mean, we have a little bit of crisp here and there, but she doesn't really crisp up like my fasciata does. Whenever she's underwatered, she can dry out and be dry a little bit longer, it seems like, than some of my others, and still do okay and not really get any crispy leaves, not really lose any of her foliage. Her leaves are just so massive and they feel amazing. They're smooth and felted. I could pet this plant all day if I'm being honest. Now, another tip whenever it comes to watering, it's kind of annoying, and I know it's something that a lot of plant parents don't like about Calatheas, and it's a reason why a lot of people refuse to keep them, and that is you need to use distilled water or filtered water. I mean, I use filtered when it comes to Calatheas. Yeah, so in one of my latest vlog videos, I showed you guys the water purification filter system that I use to water my Calatheas and begonias and my more diva-ish plants. They do not get tap water. If I gave them tap water more than a couple times, I would definitely experience some crisping on the leaf. They do get their filtered water and they do great with that. I know, guys, it can be kind of annoying when you have plants that require special treatment and require, you know, a special type of water. So if you're not about that life, if you're not into that, then by all means, stay clear of this genus of plants. And I totally get it. I understand, like, I don't criticize anyone who refuses to take in these diva plants and give them special treatment. I really don't. I don't blame you at all. Now, my humidity, like my average household humidity in my apartment, is in the spring and summer months, I keep it around 65% humidity here, and all my plants love that. They absolutely thrive in the spring and summer when I can keep the humidity that high. But in the winter, I really have not, this year especially, been able to keep my humidity that high. So my humidity averages around 50%. It doesn't really go any higher than 50 or 55 in the winter, but honestly, it's been 40% more than it's been 50. I can say that my prayer plants, my Calatheas, Marantas, they really haven't minded it too much. They do all set near humidifiers, so when my humidifiers are on, you know, they're getting firsthand that burst of humidity on their leaves. But otherwise, I mean, they're just kind of chilling in 40% and they do fine with it. I mean, they're not really throwing fits and dying, so I consider that, you know, to be doing pretty good all in all. And I know there's a lot of different varieties of Calathea that absolutely won't settle for anything under 50%. So you definitely want to keep that in mind, but I would say, you know, just try it, see how it goes. If you can keep one or two Calatheas or Marantas alive in your 40% humidity, then there you go. Then you know. I am going to say something that I'm sure not everyone is going to agree with, but the conclusion that I have come to, I honestly believe that the care lies more with your watering rather than humidity. I know a lot of people are going to tell you that it's a humidity issue, but I truly honestly believe that the type of water you're using, as well as your watering schedule and consistency, is the most important factor when it comes to keeping these types of plants alive and healthy in our homes. I would just personally worry more about your watering consistency and using distilled or filtered water than the humidity. I was editing this video and realized that I actually forgot a couple really important points that I need to mention. One of those being light. I have found that my Calatheas and Marantas do well in many different light settings. The only type of light I wouldn't place a Calathea or Maranta in would be direct sun. or direct light. They do have very thin and sensitive foliage, so it's pretty easy for their leaves to scorch and burn. If you place them in direct sun or too close to a bright grow light, you can definitely experience crisping leaves. Another thing they'll do, kind of like as a defense mechanism, I guess, if they're getting too much light, their leaves may roll inward and roll up. They do well in medium indirect light. That seems to be what has worked best for my prayer plants. I even had a couple that were in lower light settings and they still grew pretty well. No direct sun, medium to bright, indirect light, and you should be good to go. Another important thing I forgot to mention, Calatheas and Marantas are not toxic. So if you have any fur babies or human babies, any pets or children, you don't really have to worry as much about them maybe nibbling on or messing with your Calatheas or Marantas. Yeah, they're not toxic, they're not poisonous, so that's another really awesome thing about these types of plants. The last thing I want to touch on, and then we'll get back to the original video, Calatheas and Marantas both seem to be very sensitive to drafts. So if you have a heating or an air source with a vent, you definitely don't want to set your prayer plant in front of any heating or cooling vents. That can cause them to also roll their leaves or crisp their leaves. Just make sure that you put them somewhere where there's no draft or heating and cooling vents, and you should be good to go with that. All right, back to the video. So this is another one of my pride and joys, and this is my beautiful Calathea zabrina. She's amazing. I typically know that this one has spider mites because her lower, older leaves will start to get that like spotty discoloration going on, that chlorotic look. Whenever I see that going on this plant in particular, then I know that she has mites and needs a good treatment. I'll take her to my shower, spray her down really well, and then give her a nice treatment with some Captain Jack's Dead Bug. And she's good to go. She doesn't really stop growing. She has new leaves unfurling all day long. She's very full and gorgeous, and she never gives me any trouble, guys. Like, I let her dry out sometimes and I'll notice that she's wilting. This one in particular, whenever she gets too dry, she will wilt. Her leaves will just kind of drop and lay down. She gets like just really floppy and droopy, but she really doesn't get crispy whenever she dries out. I'll see her like wilted and kind of laying there like, ah, help me. I'll give her a good water and she plops right back up, continues growing and being beautiful. She's just so lush and full. And oh my gosh, look at the leaves. The leaves almost look like they were painted on. Again, I would definitely recommend Calathea zabrina. For anyone looking to get more into Calatheas, this one right here is your girl. She's easy, she's chill, she doesn't mind her underwatering. You might even be able to get away with giving her tap water. If all Calathea were as easy as this girl, then I would have a house full. Okay, we'll just leave it at that. Whenever it comes to fertilizing, you definitely want to be careful because that is one thing that I've noticed in the past. If you over fertilize, that can definitely be an issue. One time I over fertilized, I don't remember which one it was at this point, but I over fertilized and I immediately knew. It's like whenever I went to water the plant, I was like, oh, this is the amount of fertilizer that I typically use for the rest of my plants. Will it be okay for my Calathea? And literally like the next day, that plant had crisped up all of its leaves. I mean, it was a whole mess. It was bad. It was a leaf burn. Either go with something really gentle, maybe something organic, or even cut the like dose in half. So whatever that particular fertilizer that you're using calls for, cut that in half and then try that, or maybe even a little less than half. I only put half the strength of fertilizer in the water that I water these guys with, and they seem to do really good with that. Not only can you burn the leaves, but you can also burn the root system and completely kill the plant, like fry the plant. So you definitely want to be careful there. Another thing is temperature. Calatheas are tropicals and they are not going to want to be in freezing temperatures. Anything below 60 degrees, they're probably not going to be very happy with. Definitely wouldn't go below like 50, 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Just be cautious if you're like leaving your home, going to stay somewhere for a few days. You might want to leave your heat on like at least 65 or so. Tropical plants in general are not going to do well in freezing temperatures, but especially Calatheas and more sensitive plants like this. When it comes to pests, like I said, spider mites That's the main one that I find my Calatheas are pretty prone to. If I find spider mites on one of my plants, pretty much at any given time I can check my Calatheas or my Alocasias and they will have them as well. That's like the first plants that the spider mites are drawn to. I don't know what it is. No idea. I've kind of managed to separate my Calatheas and my Alocasias from the rest of my collection, like outside of my plant room, because it was just becoming such a problem. I had Alocasias and Calatheas scattered in my plant room, and it was like, it was just too much. It's like they would constantly get it, and then they were setting so close to all of my other plants in my plant room that every single plant would end up with spider mites. So I've moved them, and that's definitely helping so far. But it's just kind of like one of those things. If you're going to keep Calatheas and Marantas, you need to stay on top of their pest control. Usually at least once or twice a month, even if I don't see anything, I still go ahead and give them a good spray down in my shower and a good spray down with Captain Jack's Dead Bug, just as kind of like a preventative measure, because I can almost guarantee they're going to have them at some point, and I would rather go ahead and be on top of it and spraying them before I find out that they have them, you know, and it's like out of control. I'm pretty sure that's everything I wanted to touch on. This isn't like a super detailed care video whatsoever. I just wanted to show you guys my collection and kind of go over the way that I care for my particular Calatheas. And you guys can go ahead and leave me a comment below letting me know your care tips for your prayer plants and what works best for you. I'm sure other people watching this video would appreciate that as well. If there's anything that I missed or left out or forgot, feel free to leave it below. Thank you guys so much for hanging out and watching this video. If you liked it, be sure and give it a thumbs up, and if you didn't, go ahead and give it a thumbs down, and make sure you're subscribed if you do enjoy this type of content. But I'll see y'all really soon in my next video. You guys are the best. Bye guys.